This is the surfboard we are going to make. It's going to be in this video. Great little nose rider. An inch down, make it nice and level. Woo. From our simple paper, our piece of MDF or plywood, we have four very important pieces here now. We have our outside template, we have our bottom rocker template, we have our deck rocker template, and when we put the bottom rocker on the bottom and the deck rocker on the top, you end up with your stringer template. So if you ever gluing a board together with putting a stringer in, here's your stringer template here. So you actually get four pieces out of the very simple paper, wood glue. So here's the template we just cut out. I just drew the two templates when doing a corky. The first is the full actual board, the end product you're going to end up with, and then the inside line is what you're going to cut to. Okay, so I'm cutting the template out with a hot knife. And my friends from Korea just brought this for me, thank you Nico. And it cuts the foam with heat. And the beauty is there's no dust. And I take the offcuts down to the EPS recycler down at the tip. So here we go, I'm pulling out the first cut I've ever done with the hot knife. And let's see how it looks. Oh my God. That's looks like what Donald Takayama used to do with a saw. So now we have our outline cut out. Take the template off. And the next step will be to shape the bottom of the board and then put on the wood, glue the wood on. So I'm going to take this guy, flip it over, put the bottom in. As we're gluing the bottom on, we have our bottom rocker here. And we'll be able to use this. So there's my bottom rocker. That's the template. I shape the bottom. We set the glue, we put the wood on the bottom. We put this on while it's just in the vacuum bag, sucks down and it stays. So to start shaping the board, the bottom, you spend a lot of time looking at it with your lights and seeing where the bumps are. So we want to smooth it out, taking the basic bumps out. Then what I do with my pen or even with my hand, I draw I'm going to want to roll on the bottom of here. I'm going to put a substantial roll in. And the way you do that is you take your cuts and you cut a bevel to here. This is where the other end of the bevel is going to be. I just simply take it all the way around. So my first cut is going to be to that line. By drawing these lines, line here around the board and here, I'm going to make a very even cut. And I want both sides to be equal. And so when I have lines, I know that this side is equal to that. Okay, I just shaped the board. I used the planer a bit. When I'm looking at the board, what I'm looking for is that perfect nice and roll. A very nice roll going all directions. It just should flow like that. And then you can see that it comes to the line. I drew another line and it's nice and equal there. So I keep an eye and I draw the line that shapes the board down to the line. One of my favorite tools at this point is my calipers, and I just can bring them around and say, okay, that side's equal to that side. Yep, go around the board with the little calipers, easy peasy. Just making sure that it's that the rails are the same thickness. So one thing that is tricky with these boards is because the wood, the grain goes that way, they can split. So right up in the front here, I will put a piece of Paulownia. Actually, the two pieces of Paulownia going this way with the grain going that way, and then inlay them into the foam, and then the decks will come that way. And so that this is a bit of plywood under there so that the board doesn't split that way, because when you spend so much time hanging 10, a lot of pressure there to kind of split. So here we are with the sheets that are 8 feet long of 2mm thick Paulownia. We're making a 9/6, so we have to lengthen the sheets. So I cut the ends at a 45-degree angle on the sheets. I'll put them together, and so I actually end up with about a 14-foot long sheet, but I can make my 9/6 out of it. So I'm going to be cutting all 8 pieces of wood, 4 of them on the front half, 4 of them on the back half, and it makes it very easy because just they're doing it all en masse. So here we go, we pull that out, and I cut all these pieces at once. Here we have the vacuum bag situation. We'll put the wood on the bottom, put the board in the bag. This is our bottom rocker. So I'm going to set it up so that we get this bottom rocker. So I'll just take it and I'll put it like that. It doesn't matter so much here except for the tip of the tail. I really want this tail to be spot on like that in the bag the first time. I've got 4 noses here and 4 tails. There's going to be 2 of them on the front, 2 of them on the back, on each side. So I put them on like that, and now I kind of choose what looks good. I think this one can go under. The under one has that cross going that way. The top one has the cross going that way. So I'm lining up the sheet of wood for the bottom. It's so warm right now that I'm just going to put 1 sheet on at a time. Plus I have the little extra pieces in the nose here. So I'll put it in the vacuum bag, get the bottom rocker right. Then later on I'll put the second piece on. Because again, it's pretty hot right now. So the glue goes off faster. The glue is catalyzed by water, which is really hard to get my head around, but that's the way it is. So I put some glue on the bottom of the board here, and then I'm going to put the wood on the top. Throw it in the vacuum bag. I love vacuum bags. This is at the end of a piece of wood, so the grain is pretty rugged right there, giving you that little bit of glue to stay there instead of squeegeeing it all off. You can see because it's warm, the glue is going to start foaming very quickly. And so the clock is ticking, and once it goes off, you're just smoked. There we go. So we got the rocker. It's pretty good. Remember we got this cloth here. So that's good. The top will get it just exactly right, but there's only 1 layer. We're on point. Okay, we have 2 sheets of 2mm layers of Paulownia on the bottom here. And the beauty of Paulownia is that you can have that curve, but you can also have that curve. In a way, you're wrapping the wood around a spoon basically, and that is the beauty of the 2mm. 3mm is hard, 4mm it doesn't do that. So that's why we have the 2mm thing. And then just a little while ago I trimmed the wood down just to get it down to the foam here. And then so our next step is to figure out what our rails are going to look like. We got a big square rail here. How are we gonna turn that into the rail we want? And this is the really tricky part. So I'm gonna introduce you to my library. This is my rail library. The So my library is my library of rails. And so this is a long process. We're just going to skim over it. But I have the rails of my favorite boards here. And here, here's my 8-foot single fin. There's my special corky nose rider. And today we're going to be looking at my signature model, because I want this board to be just like my signature model, which is a nose rider. So I'm actually going to copy the rails here. So I have these rails, they're mine forever, and we will share these with you so that you get a feel for it. You can say, okay, that's Tom's rail, and if I'm going to make a board, or if I want to change the board, I want to make it a little bit thinner, well, we have the control. And then I recommend that you get the most important tool of all, which is one of these guys, which helps you find your rails. So this is kind of a silly part right now where I'm going to copy my rails onto a piece of paper, so just hold on. Okay, so I've copied the rails of my favorite signature model from 1998, and these are the cork. So there's 3 layers of cork here. That's what's going to be on the rail. That's what we're going to shape. So, got the brown pen, thank you Sunday, and go straight up down from there. There we go. The brown line is where the cork is. So there's 3 layers of cork right here, right? So fantastic. That's what we're going to be shaping. That's what's going to end up there. But right now, we want to look at our actual rail. So we've got our midpoint right here. And by the way, this is your quintessential tool, shaping tool. And we draw in blue. So this is what we want to end up with, the black line. The brown is the cork, which we're going to shape down. But right now we're at this blue line, and we want to shape this rail off. But we also want to shape it past. We want to shape past here because this is going to be the wood. So we're actually going to shape this blue line down past where we need to go, knowing that we're going to put 4 millimeters of Paulownia on top of that. So after I'm done shaping the deck of the board, I'm going to shape it down to the blue line right there. This is the tip of the tail of the board. This is 1 foot from the tail, 1 foot from the nose, because I'm going to put the wood there next and then add the cork. Okay, so here's my calipers, which is also the most important tool. And I measure here, which is where I'm going to shape the board to, and the bottom of the board right now. So that's where I'm going to shape down to. You can see there's a lot of foam to take off. And so you need your dots and your lines to take control, because this is where you have to end up, and that's actually quite a bit of foam to move. So I look at the thicknesses of the board, and it's 3 inches thick. And when we cut our foam, we cut it basically to the thickness right now. So I take maybe 1/8 of an inch off of the center here, off the center volume, and just almost nothing there as well. So I'm just shaping the rails. And the beauty is, with the hot wire, you actually cut the thickness. So you can see where, here's the tail red line there, and take my rail gauge, and then I put it, and remember I want to take it down to the lower blue line, and that's it. Let's see how we did in the middle. Red line, just right above the red line. Looks like I might have to take that down a hair, but we'll see. No, it's spot on. It's absolutely spot on. I'll just roll off the deck here, and then we'll put the wood sheets on the top. This is like the best tool because you have this soft foam here and you just roll it out and it does not take long. But also, with the length of the rock, you just get really nice curves. You get it, roll it around the deck here. Well, I think it's ready to take up and put some wood sheets on the deck. Here is the MDF deck template that we made, but it's actually not going to work because I just realized that my board's an S deck. I put the S deck in because my son Finley absolutely loves the S deck. So when I pull it up, pull the regular rocker template up, regular deck rocker, well the middle there throws it out. So I'm just going to use my really old, again 1998 deck template, and I'm just going to put that rocker into it. Now putting the rocker into the board as you put the wood on the deck is the hardest part of the board. It's actually the really difficult part, and it's good to have a mate helping you out. And I'm going to do a dry run. I'm actually going to do it, put it in the vacuum bag and set it up all before I even put the glue on. So just watch the process because it's really easy to screw it up, and if you get it wrong, you're really stuck with a board, either with a twist or with not enough rocker or too much rocker. So this is the hard part. Okay, got it sorted. Bit of jigging around, putting the S deck in was something that was a bit of an oversight, but it just goes to show once again that you gotta kind of do a dry run, say, oh my God, look at this, I mucked this up. Not mucked it up, but I've gotta pivot to the moment. So we're ready to go, complete dry run, pump is ready, vacuum bag doesn't have a hole in it, so we can actually do it now, totally ready. Again, the glue reacts to water, which is totally bizarre. And so we got to water down the sheets before we put them on. Set your watches, the clock is ticking, let's go! So we have the there we go. Board out of the board bag now with the bottom on and the top on. And so now I'm going to have to cut the overlap here. And you'll see I have a little bit of wetsuit glove here and a glove in my hand, a gardening glove or a work glove, because your blade has to be sharp and it's a little bit treacherous cutting the overlap off. And it's not bad, you can do it with a planer, but with your little knife like this, cuts off pretty easily. So we've cut the little overlap off. Now actually comes the super fun part, which is using your good old block plane, and we're going to make both of these edges flat so they both have 90 degrees. Now the wonderful long block, and this is so important for this part of the board. It has this nice flex, but not too flexy, just enough to really sit there and put pressure on the sandpaper all the way up the block. And this takes out small little bumps that you kind of don't see with your eye, and smooths them out so that you can kind of deal with them later. I think it's nearly impossible to get a really nice, perfect curve along your rail without the long block. The next tool, this is also a very important tool. It is just a straight edge. I call it a kadunk. And the reason I call it a kadunk is you want to take it and you want to just have it go across your rail like that. And when you hit a flat spot, it goes kadunk. It goes kadunk. Flat spot. Okay. You find the high spot. Put a little mark right at the high spot there. Take your planer. No kadunk. So next, doing the curved parts of the template, the nose and the tail, I have my curved sanding block, which is my favorite curve here. And it's just a portion of a circle. And so when you're sanding, you can very quickly feel and see if they're even or not, how even they are. And you get that curve exactly right. It helps you feel the outline of the board. And if there's bumps, it lets you know straight away. Again, this becomes a part of my own arm because it feels things just like my hands do. Because it's the same curve for 20 years actually. So next we find our little red dots. I found them in the middle of the board here, and we put our rail gauge on, and this is the moment of truth. How good are you? And we put it on. We want it to go to the black line. That's basically a perfect fit. Maybe it's a millimeter too thick, but that's good. That's spot on. Go to the other side. Again, these red dots are really helpful. You go through the whole board that way. This and your lines and your rail templates, this is how you have control over your shape. If I wanted to make the board thicker, I could say I'm going to add 5 millimeters or a quarter inch to the rail, and I would measure it and I would feel it and I'd know that both sides are equal, and I'd have total control over that. When you don't use your measurements and your tools, you lose control, and then you're not quite sure what you're making, and then you don't even know what you made after you sold it. So it's really, really important to get this into your brain and out again. Now when we look at a board, we don't want to look straight at it and try to analyze it with our right brain. We want to look at it with our left brain, which means you look at it out of half your eye or the corner of your eye. And you let your left brain digest the outline of the board. Look over there, and looking at the board. And I feel the board. Like, it's really important to feel the board, how it looks. And then when you look at it, it'll talk to you much better, because it's not your right brain trying to figure stuff out. So once again, using my wonderful calipers, I take it to the middle of the board, the thickest part there, and so I'm going to want a piece of cork that covers all that, so that I draw my line there, and then I measure it. I draw 6 lines like that all the way down, 3 per side. Cut 3 strips per side, that thickness. And there's a little bit of waste on the end because it's much thicker, but I found that it's really a pain in the butt to actually cut them thinner for the ends of the board. Spraying the rail down. You really want to get it into the cork. You really want it to saturate into it because it takes a lot of stress, this cork does. It really wants to pull apart. The glue is foaming up because it's really warm right now. The clock is ticking. Okay, another quick little lesson. As we stuck the board in, I forgot to put the breather in. We don't need much of a breather for these bags, but you need a little bit more than what I just threw in here at the last second. And so it's working, but we had to kind of tape it together. And you want some breather coming over the rail so the air gets sucked from the whole area where you want it to be sucked in from. How are you on that end? So that happens if it flipped over? I just got glue on my Wegener t-shirt. Okay, the cork is on the rails. We'll have to redo the tail there, which is fine. So now I start cutting them off, kind of filleting it like a fish off the bottom of the board and then off the deck. And the key is you just don't want to go into the wood, and it's pretty easy to do. So you give yourself a bit of extra space there. Take your time. I've always got this on because I don't want to cut myself, and it takes a little while to just cut these off. You could take your sander and cut them off as well. I do a bit like this, and then I take the sander, like here, I'll sand that. All of this gets sanded, and I get it nice and flat, and then we start working on shaping the rail. We're going to shape the rails now, and I've got my red pen, and I go to my midsection here, and I put my rail gauge on, and I pull it up, and I put it on my rail template here, and I mark it just like this. And now you can see this is the tail and this is the nose. The black line is the wood. Black line is the wood. The red is now the cork. So now I have to shape the cork down to get my rail. And so what I'll do is I'll measure to here, and I'll cut that bevel. And then I'll go from there to there, and I'll cut that bevel. And then I'll just round these off in order to get the curve that I want. And then after that I measure with my rail gauge as we go along. I'm going to measure the cut I want to make here on the deck of the board. So it's going to be that. So basically it's a roundish rail. So I go to my red dot here, and I go to there, and I go to there, and that's going to be my bevel. And the reason I do this is, again, to keep control. I want that rail, and this is how you whittle down to that rail. Now this is the actual shaping process, and it's fun, and cork is nice to shape, and the wood is nice to shape. You want to be pretty careful when you're sanding with the electric sander with 80 grit on the rail. You can see I went nice and slow. I'll take it by hand from here. So you can see the shadows of the bevels here as we move the board across. And what we want is those bevels to be nice and straight, not lumpy. They're okay, but you know, there's a bit of a lump here. and then to mark them up with your dots, and so you get a nice clean line. Because this is an S deck, it's a little bit thicker here. It doesn't really affect the rail too much, but it definitely affects your eyes when you look down the board. And I'll probably start with a long block just to get these little lumps out here, just to get this perfect curve. It's very easy and very fun to get your rail gauge here and go to the middle and say, okay, how am I traveling? Your gauge there, and you come over to the other side. So far, so good. But you can really keep track. You can say, okay, there's my rail. I know where I want to go. So it's another way of looking at how you're traveling. So you can see the dark band of the shadow here where the rail, that's the last bit of square. All you have is two dots, and two dots there in the nose. And you roll that over with pretty fine sandpaper, like 120 to 150, 180 even. Sand it down and your rails are done. No more than 120 on the rails because the cork actually rips a little bit. So the finer sandpaper, you have to put a bit more muscle into it if you get a better finish. I like to make my fins out of plywood, and I don't like screwing around with fin boxes. So here I have my 18mm ply, which has 14 layers of mahogany, and I will cut a base. So here's the base that's going to go into the surfboard. So basically the bottom here is going to be up against the wood on the deck, and then it sinks deep into the board. It's really easy to cut with a blade actually to get that out and then basically router it, but it's pretty easy to do. And then I'll set the fin in there with that block. But before I do that, I shape the fin. And shaping fins is a lot of fun. And I like doing this because it's wood. I shape the whole fin, I stick it in there, and I'll never have to worry about it ever again. Until I run into the rocks a few times, and then it's easy to repair. But it's a really fun part of a wood surfboard, and it's all you, and it costs a couple of bucks. Yay! Okay. The last thing is we want to check our rails, and that is spot on. So this is what I want to teach you, is to be able to reproduce a rail with your simple tools, to have an idea and know what you want to make, and then actually make it with control and confidence. And you can do it with just these really basic tools, with a really basic method of measuring. You just need to measure and then make it. Measure, make it. Your ideas come through the tools and through the measurements. Okay, I'm going to put a grand total of 5 coats of varnish on it, which is about 10 coats over the rails actually, because it's 5 coats and 5 coats on the other side. And then we're going to go surfing on it. And this is a new addition to the family, the signature S deck.